Massaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Gassama finds Masaba.
It's now Bannon. Bannon with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
Hello and welcome to Wednesday Till I Die podcast. This is Extra Time. As of course, I'm joined with by Dom Howson as well from the main pod. He's made it over to Extra Time without any hiccups. But yeah, we're going to be talking about three different scenarios for next season. Them being Danny Reel staying with a budget to spend, Danny Reel staying without a budget that was promised, and also the one that's probably more true, a new manager, and also no money to spend as well, and seeing what we think might potentially happen. So let's get straight into it, Dom. So let's just say, absolute perfect scenario, Dejphon Chansiri was owed about 150 million when he said he couldn't pay the players, and he's now got an absolute plethora of money to spend that we can now spend on all sorts of different things, players, new training ground, I don't know what it could be, and Danny Reel has given his word and he's staying next season. Like, that would be the ultimate dream as any Wednesday fan. You know, where could Danny Reel take a squad with some actual money to spend?
Bring it on! It's going to happen. This is what we want. They've gone from 24th to 12th in 18 months, so this is it, of where you're then looking at it and going, if Danny Reel's in charge, he knows this squad inside out, he knows what the strengths and weaknesses are, he'd then have two windows to be trying to knock on the door and crack the top six. That's what it would be, the aim would be. And look, we all know, we didn't go through this on the main pod, but we all know that, I mean, the areas, centre-half, they've got to bring in a couple of centre-halves, and then at least one striker. But saying that, it depends on who goes out contract players. Some will stay. The squad is going to need to be reshaped. We know that. And it's going to have to be done prudently. But if Danny was given money, so far you would say you'd be concerned about the Ugbo buy. But if he was actually given the funds, I don't think he actually realistically would want loads. But I mean, I think, again, if you gave him, say, another 2.5 to 5 million, I think maybe in his mind, he believed with his coaching staff, they can develop the existing squad, and that might be enough for them. I still would look at it and go, you've got the top four that were clearing away, like they've been the best by far, and we've known it for half a year. That, like, they're just too strong. Leeds, Sheffield United, Sunderland, Burnley, they're in a league of their own. But you look at the 5th and the 6th places this year, this is where the frustrations come. It really wouldn't have taken Wednesday much more in January, like we said, if they'd invested cleverly to, I think, have come really close. And so that I think that's where Reel would look at the potential of this squad and think, yeah, he could do it, and he wouldn't need massive amounts of money to take them to the next level.
For me, I think with a budget, you'd need to be, and to be fair, I think we need to do this whether we've got money or not, but just reducing the average age of the squad. Because I'm looking now, the average age, according to Transfer Market, is 27. And I think that's
so true.
Honestly, Beadle Charles and Shea Charles probably bring that average right down because of their ages. But when you look, and you mentioned them on the main pod, Barry Bannon, 35 years old, Windass, 32, 31,
yeah.
Pato, the oldest 30-year-old that you've ever seen in your life,
Smith, 32,
Smith as well. Yeah, when you look at all those that are playing regularly as well, it's just too old. I know they've by and large they've all been injury free this season, which has been great, but it's not going to last forever. So with an actual transfer budget, and you can bring in some top quality young players as well into that squad. I think I said it time and time again. I think we've been punching well above his weight just because of the squad that we've had. It hasn't been good enough. good in between boxes, not got that cutting edge, and also at the back. And I do feel like Danny Röhl has been trying to get them to do something that they just, on occasion, can't quite do just because of their skill level. If you bring in some top quality players, if you bring in, well, I mean, if you're never going to get it, but an 11 Shea Charleses, that would be absolutely fantastic. But players of that sort of ilk, or they don't have to be quite as good as Shea Charles, but if you bring in players around him that are that good. Honestly, with Danny Röhl and what he can do with a squad, that'd be fantastic. Adam said, "I think we just need to sign 11 centre halves, cover all injuries for the season." I think the other thing, strength in depth as well. Yeah. You look to the bench this season. The bench hasn't really made any real changes. I know you're going to look and points from losing positions, and it has changed things up sometimes, and we've gone on to to rescue games. But you look at that, and that will be another area, if you've got the budget to do that, would be strengthening the whole squad, not just the starting 11.
I swear, on the point of bringing the average age down, I think Wednesday fans and in the media, people have been talking about this since the days of Gary Monk. I swear, just young, athletic, hungry squad, and lower the average age. But yeah, and it doesn't really seem like Wednesday being able to do that. But then I suppose it's the wider point of you can't lower the average age of the squad too easily if you don't have a thriving academy that produces players on a regular basis. We have seen historically that the club down the road do that far better than what Sheffield Wednesday have done. And so until that changes, you can't then bring players through of your own who are going to be up to the championship level. And don't get me wrong, I think Otto might be someone that could turn into a championship player. But again, he's still a young player learning his trade. And Wednesday having to throw him in, that's what they have done this season with the injury crisis that they've had at the back. And so you'd like to see more players come through Wednesday's academy, but we've been saying this for years, and that the talent pool, it clearly isn't strong enough, or managers aren't prepared to take the risk and throw youngsters in at the deep end as well. And we've seen throughout the Chansiri era that you are under pressure to get results as a manager, or you will lose your job. It's just the name of the game of where you're fighting for promotion. And this is the first year that Wednesday have not flirted with promotion and relegation in how long? And you've got to say the stat as well. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's only the 6th time Wednesday finished in the top half of the championship in 19 years. So it goes to show again, it's an achievement what they've managed this year. We shouldn't overlook that.
Yeah, it's highest we've finished since the 2016-17 season, when we finished 6th, was it? We did finish 12th 2 seasons after that, I want to say, but yeah, we've never, Sheffield Wednesday are either in the playoffs or in a relegation scrap, and more often than not in the championship, it's scrapping down near the bottom, which is it's mad to see that. Just on the average age as well, we have the oldest squad in the championship, average age of 28, and just how that compares. Sunderland's average age is 24. The average age of the starting 11 is even less than that. But you look at other clubs at the top of the league. Sheffield United average age of squad 25. Burnley's is 26. Leeds slightly bit older, 26.8, but the starting 11's a lot lower than that as well. And we're just too old. Like the squad is just too old at the moment, and that is a massive problem. But do you think that is the thing that's been missing, is just an injection of money or an injection of quality into the squad? Is that what's missing for Sheffield Wednesday at the moment?
Yeah, I still look at it and go that they could do with strengthening the spine, and it goes back to centre back, possibly a goalkeeper. They're going to need to bring one in. You're hoping that Piers Charles is going to cement the number 1 position, but there's so much pressure and attention on Piers Charles, and I think that for me is the slight concern of, you just hope. I was talking to people Wednesday before he's even made a game, and they're saying, "Look out for this kid. He's special. He's unbelievable with his feet." I saw him in one of the pre-season training camps when they were in League One, and Cameron Dawson was there, and it would have been David Stockdale, and everyone, they're just blown away by the quality and the potential he's got, and we've seen the distribution he has. But yeah, is he going to be able to handle the physicality, and is his handling going to be there? We know he's a magnificent shot stopper, but there's question marks there, and so there will have to be a goalkeeper that comes in, and it's got to be someone to challenge him. But yeah, going back to the squad building, the overall starting 11, the bench, it's strength and depth. That's what Wednesday are going to need. And I think the way things are shaping up this summer, I mean, if you think on the budget side and the three scenarios that you put forward, you're still looking at it's going to be between 6 to 10 players that are going to come in the summer. Whatever scenario, we're hoping the dream one, but then if it's the nightmare scenario, it's going to be the same predicament.
Thing is, when you look at when we're talking about squads and stuff, you'd always also say we need a goal scorer as well, and they don't come cheap either. I mean, just looking at the top goal scorers in the Championship, I know Windass is in that in the top 10, but Joel Perreault, Borja Sainz, Josh Brownhill, Josh Sargent, Tom Conway, Isidio from Sunderland, Haji Wright, Coventry, Dan James, Leeds, Finn Azaz at Middlesbrough, they've all got between 19 and 12 goals this season. You look at those, like, they don't come cheap, those players, and perhaps didn't come cheap for when their clubs bought them either. They weren't, as far as I'm aware, none of those were free transfers. Do you know what I mean? They all cost money when they brought them into the club, and that's what you have to do sometimes. All right, Windass, 500 grand. He's the anomaly out of all that. But that's it. You have to spend money, and if we did have the money, we could go out and buy said player like that. Of that sort of quality to get us up to that sort of level. Let's move on to the other one then. Let's say that Danny's been promised a budget and he then doesn't get it. You could say that happened this time around, maybe. What would you see happening? Because for me, I kind of half feel like this happened this season. In that I genuinely believe that Danny tried to get himself sacked in January. I think he tried his best for Chansiri to pull the trigger and just sack him and then he could be free to go wherever he wants. But I feel like if that happened this time around, I think it'd be catastrophic for the club. A lot of people have said that Danny's head got turned, and since January, or since December when Southampton approached him, that obviously the performances weren't quite there. Certainly the results weren't there. Imagine that at the start of this next season, if he'd been promised all these players and they don't come in, we could be talking, Cisco Munoz levels, in terms of how far adrift we might be when the whole, when all the situation gets sorted out.
The most important thing Wednesday need right now as a football club, we're talking about hypothetical scenarios.
Yeah.
But the most important thing that the club needs now is clarity. It needs clarity as soon as possible on what's happening with the manager. And the noises coming out from Danny Rowe are that it looks like he said his goodbye and he's on his way. But Wednesday, they don't want that dragging on for weeks on end. This needs to be done at the start of the summer so that they can then bring a new man in, and they've got a head of recruitment there. So you'd already like to think they've got a list of targets. But then a new manager might be thinking that there's other players out there that he wants for. And so there is an element of you still starting from scratch with a new manager. And this is the danger. And you're totally right on the Cisco Munoz point, that's where it's so chaotic in the summer that Darren Moore, 2.5, 3 weeks after leading them to promotion, goes, and then weeks before Munoz gets appointed, no new players came in until early July. And the players were still trickling through the door in pre-season, whereas, again, clubs proactive on the front foot, you need decisions ASAP, and you need to be then going, right, we're going to be working on signing this player, and they're going to improve us here, and then, we might lose this out contract player, he might turn down new contract to go elsewhere. But you need to be planning for every situation, and every eventuality that could come to pass. And so, that is what Wednesday need with, they do not want Danny Röhl umming and ahhing, decides to stay, but he's then still hankering for another job elsewhere, or could still leave to go to start. It just would leave Wednesday in limbo. Right? And I'm concerned about that if that was to happen. I don't think it will, but I just feel like history would be repeating itself.
Yeah, I just don't think it would end. I don't think it would go very well. I think he only stays if he gets given a budget, personally, and I don't think he's going to be given one. And I think he is already gone. But that was the only thing that I thought might have perhaps kept him. But if he gets promised that and it doesn't happen, honestly,
do you remember, James? You went through the phase of about midway through the season where he then kept bringing up transfer mark squad values with teams all the time. And again, their messages to the owner, the fans, to everybody of, remember, we're little Sheffield Wednesday here, we're trying to compete with the big fish. And that's where I felt like that was a bit sort of the beginning of the downfall, really, for Danny Röhl too, of where I didn't like that talk. I didn't like that messaging of where, Wednesday is, I know it's the cliche sleeping giant, but no, Sheffield Wednesday, he was making us believe that it could compete again with the teams at the top level. But then you'd lose to United, and then, look at the squad that they've got. I know it's unfair. It's not a level playing field, but you have to deal with the hand that you dealt. You can't just then be going when you lose, I'll bring up the squad value. Look at it, it's like 5 times as much as ours. I know, it is. But
it's something that fans would say. That's something that I would say.
And Chris Wilder then did his best, didn't he, to correct him. But it's just wrong to then just be thinking that. And then you put in those messages into your players as well, where I think it's just a negative outlook and not really what you need to be looking at as a manager. For me, I don't think you need to go that level. We all know it. You don't need to mention it. You certainly don't need to repeatedly mention it. And he did go through a period of it must have been 3-4 games where just every time Wednesday would lose or drop points, he would go, look, they spent this much on a player. No, don't think like that. It's just, this is the scenario.
It's that excuse mentality, isn't it?
It's the same Premier League. Again, the 3 teams have gone up. Look at what you're swimming in, the pond of where it's just players on 300, 400 grand a week, and you can only spend X amount compared to them. It's tough, but you have to find a way.
Let's talk about the third hypothetical scenario then. A new manager and no budget, and I feel that's where we're heading. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't think Danny Röhl's not staying, and we haven't got a pot to piss in either. So it's going to be a real struggle, and I think it is going to. As we said it, lots of people have said it. I feel like we're looking at a relegation scrap, and I hope it is a scrap, because it might not be either. It might just be, when you look at the players that we've got that could be leaving, Windass, we've got to replace his goals. You look at Pato, he could be on his way as well. They've got his goals to replace. Michael Smith, again, another one. I know I didn't think I'd be saying that this season, but he's chipped in with some important goals as well. When you look at it, I just mentioned earlier about looking at those players at the top of the goal scoring charts and how much they're going to cost. If you haven't got any money to bring them in, and we're relying on Ike Ugbo to find a resurgence of form, there's a lot of. When I look at the squad that we've got, there's not many. There's not a lot of positives that I'm looking at thinking, yes, I've got a lot of confidence that this squad is going to really kick on, especially if we haven't got the manager in Danny Röhl. Because he's been the person that's kind of he's made wine out of water. Do you know what I mean? And if he's not going to be there, he's not be able to do that.
Chansiri has to hit the jackpot with the manager. I mean, that's really what it's sort of shaping up to, isn't it? That's what we're all looking at, thinking that he's got to then pull off a blinder. But then in the back of your head as a Wednesday fan, you're then also thinking, Jos Luhukay, Xisco Munoz, And I mean, I wouldn't put Gary Monk in that category. I wouldn't put Steve Bruce in, but I mean, Steve Bruce lasted 6 months. You know, Wednesday have to again find another manager that you're hoping
Tony
can take them
Pulis.
on. So yes, Tony Pulis, the greatest one of all, for 10 matches in charge, crikey, and 1 win and boring everyone with that brand of dinosaur football. That's what it looked like, wasn't it? It wasn't good.
No.
Yeah, it's one of those where you do worry about so many things have got to fall into place for Wednesday, or they're going to be in banging trouble next year. And you feel as if they've gone right. They finished top half, and we should all be going into the summer thinking, great season of progress. All we need is a few tweaks here and there. That's if the manager was staying, but now the manager's going, and then this is where it goes back to the foundations of where Wednesday are not a club built for long-term success. They aren't right now, right? Of where it's also the style of managers, isn't it, James, that they go for? Right? You mentioned Tony Pulis there. It's never joined up. You never think that. Like Cisco Munoz ball, we don't know what Cisco Munoz ball is. Right, we still don't know. And then you go from Darren Moore, who had his Slaters, being a bit more conservative football, and then you go to Danny Rowe, who again has built this really fluid, quite pleasing team on the eye between the boxes, but not like ruthless killers always. And then, I mean, Carlos was amazing first year, best year in. I'd still say in 2 decades. You know, having watched a lot of Danny Rowe football, I don't think it was good as the first year of Carlos.
Closest we've ever got to the Premier League, Dom.
Yeah,
so
it was.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's,
no, but
not
not just, it was the style of play as well. I know a lot of money was thrown at it compared to, again, what Danny Rowe's got. And yeah, I think it would take the levels of money that Carlos got in that first year when they signed Hooper for $3 million, Forestier for $3 million. That's what I think, going back to the dream scenario, that's what I would say it would take, I think, for Wednesday to be challenging on top 6. But instead, I feel as if we're going to get a big wrecking ball, and then this season it's going to be, oh yeah, we're back to square one, new manager needed, loads of new players. It's a risk. You don't know how this new manager is going to. You don't even know, is he going to be British? Is he going to be someone who knows the Championship? Or are they going to go foreign? Are they going to go for a young manager? Are they going to want a manager who's progressive, who wants to play out from the back? Are they going to want a long ball merchant and turn Wednesday into the modern day Wimbledon? This is it. It's just like the unknowns, really, isn't it? It's all be about who blows the chairman away in the interview stage and what he says and what he's going to deliver, isn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what as well? I'd be really disappointed if this does rumble on and on and on, because
it can't, James. It can't.
And it can't, but you know, it could do. Like, we've known about this for ages. You look at the Darren Moore scenario, where apparently he didn't. You know, he was going to sack him after the Barnsley game. Not the playoff one. The one.
No, the 4-2.
Yeah, the 4-2. Yeah, he was going to sack him all the way back then, and he didn't, and he kept on to him. And then even then he made the decision. You know, they let him have a 2-week holiday. And then he made the decision when he came back. Like, you know, these things, you know, we need to have, next season is going to be a struggle, and we need to have the best possible chance of actually surviving next season, because, you know, he says he doesn't want to sell the club. He might not be wanting to sell a League One club, you know, this time next season, you know, and then, you know, if we said this on, you know, we're talking about kind of selling the club now, but we've said this many a time, and he's had a window of opportunity to get out of the club with a little bit of dignity, but it could get really, really nasty really, really quickly. You know, if he thinks it's bad now, like, wait until we've not won a game in X amount of weeks, you know, at the start of next season, which could be a distinct possibility.
What alarms me is how negative it's going to be at the ground next year. Oh. You know, that's it. If Chansiri hasn't sold up, and then the new manager hasn't wowed Wednesdayites, and everyone hasn't warmed him quickly, and Wednesday don't make half a dozen or so signings, it's going to be toxic. And straight away, like, it's not going to be. It's going to be Wednesday against Wednesday. That's how it's going to feel. Of where, forget the matches before they even are out on the pitch. It's the infighting that's going to be, isn't there? Of where you're still getting the split of not all fans are behind the protest and are on board with what the trust and everybody's done. And that's not going to change, I don't think. There'll still be some supporters out there for Chansiri. And they're going, oh, the grass isn't always greener, and it might get worse. And
well, we're going to have it's not the right time again.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be coming, because Danny Röhl will leave, a new manager will come in, and it'll be we can't protest because it's a new manager. Let's see what he's like, and they've got on all these new players. Let's see what they're like before we start doing all this, that, and the other. Which again is totally the wrong message, because it's not about the players, it's not about the manager, it's about the guy that's making all the decisions.
Yeah. By the way, though, I do think we have to go back to the main point, though, that I think we shouldn't overlook, is that there still has to be a deal done behind the scenes over the compensation. There has to be Southampton, Leicester, Leipzig, whoever it is, they have to stump up and they're going to have to pay for Danny Röhl. And it's if they're prepared to do that. And I don't see Chansiri letting him go on the cheap. He's not going to do that. And again, I think Alex Miller, the Star, was asking about, well, would you resign? It might take Danny Röhl. If he really wants this to be the end of his Wednesday journey, that's what he's going to have to potentially do.
But I spoke to someone about this.
Chairman be daft to let him go.
I spoke to someone about this, though, but if that does happen, he can't then take another managerial job until the end of his contract, and he's got 2 years left on his contract. So I believe that's, I don't know if you could go abroad and do that, because it kind of makes the contracts kind of null and void, really, if you can
There'd be a way of doing it. They'd have to come to some sort of agreement. And let's face it, he's done a lot of nicey-niceys since the dark days of January, where they clearly weren't seeing eye to eye and getting on. Ever since, even yesterday, it was, the chairman paying sort of tribute to him, saying grateful for support, taking a chance on May. We've heard that line as well. And he's right, he did take a chance on him. Again, if Chansiri really believed in Danny Röhl, he should have appointed him that summer after Darren. I stand by that point, that let's not praise Chansiri too much for that point, because if he really believed in him, he interviewed Danny Röhl then. He went with Cisco Munoz because he had a cheap promotion. Well, he had a promotion on his CV from Watford, but look at the talent pool he was working with at Watford compared to then what he was ending up at Wednesday. So he went with, I think, a safer option in his eyes, but it backfired spectacularly. And then he went back to Danny Röhl, and Danny Röhl, nobody thought he'd be as sensational as he has been. He's been just unbelievable for this football club.
But the other thing as well, though,
him go.
Dom, you can't keep a manager under duress, though, either. If he doesn't want to be here. For me, the situation has just been what's perceived to be handled totally wrong, because we don't know what's going to happen. An agreement could have been had in January, and hence why he still stayed. Something could have happened, but let's just say it hasn't. And you say he's got 2 years left. Yeah, they've got to pay the compensation. If they don't, he's still the manager. But honestly, from my point of view, the whole relationship is just kind of all fallen down, and you've got to keep that relationship up, because if they don't want to be there, you could stand your ground. But we're talking over yes, it's a couple of million or whatever it may be, and it's a big amount of money, but. Really, if he doesn't want to be here, just mutually terminate it, move on, just call it. Just learn from your mistakes. You should have kept that relationship up. You shouldn't get to the point where a manager doesn't want to be here anymore.
It's on both, though. It's on both. And Danny Röhl said he made mistakes, and he did. And Wednesday lost 2 weeks in January. He said that, quote unquote, as we were bickering, we weren't getting on, we weren't talking to each other. And so we're blaming, and I think we should give the other side. Well, we're being very critical there of Chansiri for not throwing more money at it. But if you've lost half of your transfer window that you should have already been prepared for, by the way, November, December, that work should have been done. And, you should have had players through the door immediately. But if manager and the owner aren't seeing eye to eye, I still believe that it's down to the owner. The buck stops with him. And so he should have done everything in his power to repair that relationship. But then there's no getting away from it that Danny did not cover himself in glory of January one bit, and that shouldn't be forgotten. And then it's coincided with the bad run, 6 wins this calendar year. And this is where we're going back to looking ahead to next season. And this club are not winning a lot of football matches again. 6 is almost relegation form, what they've done this calendar year. And so if they start off in that way next year, you're already thinking there's a handicap. They're in big trouble here. You can't afford to get the next managerial appointment right. If Danny goes, they can't, or they're heading to League One. They're going to be, right now. I honestly think you'd be looking at bookmakers, and if Rowe goes, and however many out contract players leave, Wednesday will be one of the favourites to get relegated next year. I fear. Right, it'll be in the bottom 6, bottom 7. People won't be expecting them to finish top half. No way, no chance.
Dom, quickly before we wrap things up then, who do you think, Danny's gone, who do you think might be the next manager? And if not an actual person, what type of manager do you think it's going to be?
I mean, all the talk, you can't get past Pedersen, can you, the assistant? And I'm not against that in that at least there's continuity there, and he's been a manager, crucially, before. And so you're not completely throwing everything that you've worked hard to build sort of down the toilet. I think if you're having some semblance there of continuity. So I'm not against that. I mean, I haven't seen, there's no other managers out there recently that I've thought who, I quite like Muslich at Plymouth has done a really good job there. And he's another person who I'm looking at thinking he might not stick around at Plymouth. But
the only problem is he's quite outspoken, and the comments he made just at the weekend, he'll say them after the first week because it just sounds very much like the situation at Sheffield Wednesday. So I just don't think that relationship would last.
What's incredible here is that we're 10 years now into the Chansiri reign, and so we're all of the opinion that Danny's going. So there'll be another managerial change, and so Carlos Carvalho is still going to be the longest serving manager of the Chansiri reign of 2.5 years. Like, you can't build anything for the long term and put down roots. I know it's hard in modern football, but and some managers, they've obviously made decisions of their own accord and gone elsewhere, and then Chansiri has sacked managers when it's not worked out. Look, I get that, but that's crazy though. That's the amount of managers that have been here in 10 years, and this is one where you just would have liked the relationship just to stick together a little bit longer, and so that you're then not having to just prepare for another summer of change. And that's just what I think we all fear it's heading to. And I don't know. I mean, on managers, I just hope that they don't go for somebody completely left field who doesn't have. I hope the philosophy's similar-ish as you possibly can be to Danny, and I'm sure there will be some people out there that would be like that. But yeah, I think, you look at Danny Rose, 35, he's younger than me and you. So it's like, is he going to go down for another young manager, rookie manager? At least Pedersen is someone who's been around the block a bit. And so that's why I wouldn't be against that. But I think it's also difficult sometimes, don't we, that we see with coaching staff of where then if you step up to become number one, it's implementing your own style and what you want and trying to make the changes. Doesn't always work, does it? And so it'd be a gamble.
I think if you're a betting man, Henrik Pedersen would probably be the one that you would go for. But we'll have to wait and see if you're right, Dom. Dom, massive thanks, mate, for coming on. Do really appreciate it, for sticking around for extra time as well. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. But have you enjoyed yourself, Dom?
Loved it, mate. I'm big shoes to fill, didn't I, with Matt? So, I'm just hoping that, just done my bit a little bit. And, it's been great fun, mate, as I expected it to be. So, really enjoyed it. So
the emergency loan has worked out perfectly, almost akin to Kenwyne Jones-esque, I would have to say. But no, it's been great to have you on, Dom.
Oh, thank you for having me. No, Kenwyne Jones, at least you're finishing the pod on a high after your awful intro. I'm not going to forgive you for that one. So, to be compared to the greatest Wednesday loan ever of our time in Kenwyne, I'll take that. Thank you.
Well, Shea Charles might be checking that accolade, but it's not a bad one.
It was close. I'll take Kenwyne though. That's great. I'm all about the goals and the glory anyway.
Exactly. Massive thanks everyone for listening. Do appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you again next time. Cheers.